Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Dave.
And join us every Thursday for a new episode of Two Player Bros, a podcast about two guys who play way too many video games. Join me and Dave as we talk about the latest in Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and VR news, previews, and reviews. We have it all, and we play it all.
And join us every other week for Post Game, where we play through and dive deep into our favorite modern classics and new releases.
That's Two Player Bros, available every Thursday wherever you get your podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hey, it's Andrew Morgan, host of the Nomcast, the Netflix original movie podcast. Each week, we review the biggest Netflix original movies with special guests from the film industry, the music industry, comedians, and of course, our fellow podcasters. Check us out on the web at nomcastpod.com. Follow us on the socials at nomcastpod. And most importantly, listen and subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. Hit that beat one time.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
I'm Pat Whalen.
Pat is a lifelong comic book geek.
And Mike is a filmmaker and storyteller.
So naturally, a bulk of our conversations surround the world of the Marvel movies. Some consider the MCU one of the greatest achievements in modern-day filmmaking, and others just think they're comic book movies. Each episode will tackle one film and discuss the differences between the comic book and what's on screen. We'll explore the growth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from its inception to present day and beyond, and have a little fun along the way. You may not have asked for it, you certainly don't need it, but you'll be happy we're here. We think. This is yet another MCU podcast. What's going on, Pat?
Not much, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So we have returned. We have, obviously, last week we talked about Captain America Civil War. Now we are going to take a left turn. We are talking about Doctor Strange this week. So I'll give you the quick facts, and then we'll go into all the stuff that we love to go into. So Doctor Strange is 115 minutes, a little under 2 hours. Doesn't feel like that. Rated PG-13. Production budget $165 million, which surprised me. That's high for a new, like a new brand, like a new IP.
I don't know. That was the same. We talked about this in a couple of our bonus episodes, that was the number that Marvel had to hit in the early phases. Plus,
was it a 150?
It was 165,
okay.
But the early ones hit around 150.
Okay.
And there's a lot of visual effects in this.
Oh, there's a ton of them. Yeah. This came out on November 4th, 2016. Its opening weekend, it did $85 million. Domestic, it did $232 million, and worldwide, $677 million. So a lot.
But I don't think the return was as expected, or maybe it was as expected, but it wasn't as high as the other ones we've seen. The immediate return wasn't as high as the immediate ones.
Their opening weekend?
The opening weekend, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's first week in November. It's not really the holiday season yet.
I got hit in the Black Friday crowd.
True. It's very true. I think a lot of the Marvel releases aren't contingent upon when they want to release them within a certain part of the year. I think it has more to do with spacing out the other movies.
Yes.
You know, like, we need a new Marvel movie this time.
Every
yeah.
3-4 months.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a lot of people here that have not not done anything in the other Marvel movies. You've directed by Scott Derrickson, who's more of a horror director, written by a ton of people, but John Spates, Scott Derrickson again, and C. Robert Cargill. Music by Michael Giacchino, which I was very surprised that he was not involved in any other Marvel movies.
He did Star Trek, right? The new Star Trek?
Yes, he did all the new Star Trek. He's done a ton of other stuff. This is the Marvel logo that plays in the beginning when they call
the fanfare.
Right. He did that. He wrote and composed that. So the cinematographer, Ben Davis. Now, Ben Davis comes back from Guardians of the Galaxy. He goes on to do Captain Marvel. He did Age of Ultron. He will be doing the Eternals whenever that comes out. We all know who produces these, so I'm not going to say it again. So now you have a bunch of new people coming back. You have Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange. I'm going to say this dude's name wrong. Who plays Mordo? Chiwetel Ejiofor? Did I get that right?
I don't know.
Sounds good.
Ejiofor?
Hey,
he's in Serenity.
We all know who we know who we're
he's
talking
in a bunch
about.
of stuff. He's great.
Rachel McAdams is Dr. Christine Palmer. Benedict Wong as Wong. I hope that was just a coincidence.
It's kind of like B.D. Wong in Jurassic Park. Where he plays Dr. Wong,
yeah.
And in Law & Order SVU.
Well, that's what I know B.D. Wong from, Law & Order. Mads Mikkelsen as Caecilius. I will tell you right now, he's the best Hannibal Lecter that has ever been played. You can come at me all you want. He is the best Hannibal. That's right. Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One. Michael Stuhlbarg as Dr. Nicodemus West. I only put him in there because I know he's a small role, but I'm curious if he's in the comic. I know you.
Yeah, we're
going
to talk about him.
Yeah. And then Benjamin Bratt as Jonathan Pangborn. I want to talk about him too because I have a feeling
I don't know much
bigger.
about him, but I don't know why he's in this movie.
He feels like he should have a bigger role.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But we see the end of it, and it looks like spoilers for the end of this movie.
That's the tag.
The tag of the movie where it looks like Baron Mordo is looking to take his magic power that had given him his
too many sorcerers in the
too
world?
many magicians, too many sorcerers. Yeah. So I don't know if we'll see Benjamin Bratt again. I don't understand because it seems like now and we have no idea what's going to happen in the next Doctor Strange movie, but it's going off into this idea of the multiverse with Scarlet Witch. So are they going to even go back to the Benjamin Bratt storyline?
Well, we'll get to kind of this movie and the character in this movie in terms of what he's done within the MCU and beyond. I've got a couple thoughts on that. But as far as this movie in and of itself, so this is the 14th MCU film now we've done. Wow, we've done 14 of these. The first conversation that me and you had here, actually, and then the first conversation I've had with a couple other people about the movie, the first thing that comes I say is he's such a jerk.
Oh, he's mean
in this movie.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is mean.
Like in the beginning of the movie, he's such a jerk, and I know it's coming. I know he's going to get into the accident, and I'm like, you deserve this accident that's coming to you. But that never changes. He is consistently a jerk throughout the movie.
There's the scene when he's feeling sorry for himself. He sold off all of his possessions to fund these treatments, and he just rips into Rachel McAdams, Christine Palmer, and like it is not even like in no way do I feel sympathetic for the character throughout the rest of the movie. He is just it's brutal.
Yeah, and he doesn't really apologize. He does apologize, like he says, "I'm sorry," but it's like you said a lot. Like you were really like. It was a good 5 minutes of berating her, and after she is clearly, because the concept of time kind of disappears here at some point between the accident and when rehab, and I'm like, how long has this been? Like how many? And we'll go into that, but that he berates her after all the stuff she's done for him. She's shaving him, she's taking care of him, and then he's just like, oh hey, I'm sorry. And it's just like
when he needs her though.
Yeah, exactly.
When he
needs you to do something.
He apologizes.
Yeah,
and we say apologizes in air quotes over here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what I tell my kids: are you apologizing because you feel bad, or are you apologizing because you want something,
or because you got caught?
Yeah, exactly. And it's he's like, even when he's like learning all this stuff and he's learning the new ways of the world and what all the other worlds out there, he's still a jerk who knows information now.
He wants to be the smartest one in the room again.
Yeah,
and lords it over the other people. And he doesn't ask Wong for permission. He goes in and steals the books.
Right.
There's no redemption for him.
Yeah, and
it's not fun.
It's not fun. Like it's not cute when he's stealing the books. It's just like, and they kind of rehash the same joke in this movie that they do in Guardians when he's listening to the Walkman, he's listening to Beyonce, and when he gets his Walkman stolen in
when they're
Guardians,
in prison,
and they kind of use the same joke a little, which is a little lazy, but whatever. It's really tough to root for him in this movie because even the fight when he fights Caecilius the first time, it's the jacket, it's the cape that's fighting.
Yes.
It's not him.
No.
and
he gets lucky.
Yeah. I wonder if, and I don't know if you watched the Sherlock show that he was in.
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm wondering if he's just pulling from that in terms of his, or maybe just because I've seen it, because he's the same way in that.
It is the same way.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in other movies where he's nicer. I wonder if once they cast him in it, they almost rewrote it to get a little bit more of that Sherlock feel.
Right. I actually would have been okay if Mikkelsen played Doctor Strange. I would have been. I don't know. I like Mads a lot. I like his stuff he's in, and there's just always like he's working on. This is not to take anything away from Cumberbatch. This is just something that I've enjoyed Mads in a lot of stuff. So that's why I could almost see him as Doctor Strange in just this role. It's just maybe it's too much Sherlock blended in for me because I've seen it, but he's really just one note with his jerkiness. Like I just can't think of a better word.
Yes.
I mean I can. I'm just trying to keep it PG, but it just
Mike doesn't want to have to edit this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to be nice. So it's just he's really a tough hero to root for.
Yeah, there's nobody in the. I mean, I guess maybe you root for Wong because Wong shows up. He defends it. He, obviously gets
the one street that we only know as Hong Kong.
Yeah.
What were those called again? Temples? Not temples.
Sanctums.
Sanctums.
The Sanctum Sanctorums.
So I wanted to ask a question about the sanctums. So there's a sanctum in New York, there's a sanctum in London, and then there's a sanctum in Hong Kong. But we don't care about the Southern Hemisphere? Like there's no sanctums down there? There's no sanctums in like Brazil or like, there's sanctum in Africa somewhere. There's a sanctum in Australia. It's just the Northern Hemisphere that we care about. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You want me to answer this honestly?
Yeah.
Just where this movie is going to go out and make money.
Probably. That's unfair. That's not right. But yeah, no, seriously.
But and I don't want to I won't skip ahead too much in this piece, but in the comics there are multiverses, and they touch on that a lot in this one.
Okay.
Where there's a sanctum in each of the multiverses.
Sure.
So there's a sorcerer supreme in each separate universe.
Which was the ancient one, right? She was the sorcerer supreme in this.
Which I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember the Tilda Swinton controversy?
No. Go ahead.
So the ancient one, when this was written, it was written in the 60s. They played up the Asian Eastern culture of everything. So the ancient one was an older Asian man,
right?
From Tibet, a Tibetan man. And so when Tilda Swinton got cast, people were in an uproar because, why, and Marvel was kind of in a no-win situation, because if they put an Asian man in this almost condescendingly typical Asian kung fu master role, they probably would have gotten in trouble too.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put in Tilda Swinton, who said, I'm not playing this, I'm gonna play this as androgynous. I'm gonna play this as, you're not really sure who or where or what the Ancient One is.
Right.
And, of course, she got in trouble for that too. So, I mean, I don't think there was a winning situation here. I think Tilda Swinton played the Ancient One well.
Right.
Obviously, there needs to be more diversity in films in general, and that goes, behind the scenes and in front of the camera. But yeah, I think they were in trouble no matter what.
Well, a lot of times the decisions are based upon money. The
Yeah.
decisions are based upon, what's going to make us the most money. So, if they're just straight up honest about that, you can say like, well, that's not right, but it's but I want to make money.
Yeah.
So that's why we cast these people in these roles. Whatever. What are you going to do? You can't please everybody.
And you could have brought in, I don't know how many Tibetan actors there are in Hollywood. Not many that I could think of.
Well, good actors.
Yeah, known actors.
Right.
You could have brought in Ken Watanabe, but then people would have been, now you're changing it.
Well, people would have been you're changing it, but then they would have been like, is that the only Asian actor?
Right. That's the only. Yeah,
like
exactly.
That.
There's
right.
no win here. I think she played it well. Enough,
Yeah.
and I think, I didn't have a problem with her performance.
Did you get the sense in the opening of the movie that they were trying to do an Iron Man opening with the music? Like it felt like
Yes.
Iron Man.
Yeah, they were trying to use the music that they had in Iron Man. They were trying to use it, like the audience connected through Guardians.
Yeah.
And now they wanted to bring it back in and give this another pathway into this absolute jerk of a man.
Yeah. So when he shows up, well, let me go back to the time frame. So how long are we saying it was from in the movie, the accident to rehab? 18 months? He got messed up. 2 years?
I don't know, because there's a key, and I'm wondering if you caught this.
I did. I know. I already know where you're going. Go ahead.
When he's in the car and he's like driving to the party or wherever he's driving to.
Yep.
Somebody's coming up and says, 37-year-old former Air Force lieutenant suffered a spine injury in an experimental flight suit.
Right.
And that's Rhodey. We know that. It's Civil War. This takes place almost immediately after the opening of this.
But they refute that. Like they come out and say that that's not him.
When do they do that?
Oh, they talk to like Derrickson or somebody says that no, the time frame doesn't match up because this is supposed to take place after Civil War.
And
I know. I know. I don't. Or no, it's like because
there's a piece in, if we go back to Winter Soldier,
right,
when Hydra says, where we have our giant laser guns pointed at people, and they mention Stephen Strange of Greenwich Village,
right,
or New York City, whatever they say.
Greenwich Village.
He is in Greenwich Village, and we'll get there. But they mention him, so I'm trying to understand. He wasn't the Sorcerer Supreme in. If we go back to Endgame, if like we go to Endgame, and when Bruce Banner shows up to the Ancient One, to the Sanctum.
Is that Endgame or Infinity War?
Endgame.
Okay.
And when they travel back in time.
Right.
And so Bruce goes and sees the Ancient One and asks for the Time Stone. And she says, "Well, you're not, Stephen Strange isn't supposed to show up for X amount of years."
Okay.
And then we so we know that he's not there and ready in 2012.
Right. Okay.
Then in Civil War, they say Stephen Strange of New York is a danger to Hydra. We're going to eliminate him. We're going to assassinate him. But how do they know that if he doesn't become Doctor Strange until post-Civil War?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all over the place. I think they don't know. Almost like they felt like they did this on their own a little bit, and then they added stuff to. I don't know, because it's confusing.
In a movie about time, they get the time completely screwed up.
Right. So Derrickson says that by the time you've gone through his journey and you're into the second half of the movie, it's present day. So in the beginning, it's not. So you have to assume that if it's present day and Civil War just happened, then that information is way before that. The information of that's what Derrickson says. I'm reading this off IMDb. Some people believe that it actually refers to Justin Hammer's experiment in Iron Man 2, where Stark shows up, shows the videos of the armor research when he's at the Senate hearing.
Okay.
So some people are saying it's that, but I don't know. It's because the car he's driving. Here's the thing too, which doesn't make any. Which let's not take this in the grain of salt. The car he's driving is a 2016 model.
Okay, so
but who cares?
2015, it comes. He buys the car brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Still doesn't add up.
None of it adds up. None of it adds up. But here's the other thing. So my original question was, what's the time frame between his accident and rehab? Let's say it's 2 years. What's the time frame between him going to the temple and then him learning all the stuff? What's the time frame there? Because that's not 2 months.
Well, there was a montage.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they show him that he learned astral projection so he could read while he slept, so that he could read.
Give me a break.
I'm just trying to explain it from the movie perspective.
So, but does he astral project the books when he's reading while he sleeps?
There's a thing in the comics. It's called the astral ring, that if he could touch physical objects when he's in the astral form.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't know.
Why does he need the ring? Why does he need the metallic? What is it called? The ring?
The ring sling?
Okay, what? Sling ring.
Sling ring.
Why does he need the sling ring to make a ring, but he only needs his hands to harness the energy? I don't like these shaking the heads here.
So, full disclosure to the viewers at home, listeners at home.
Viewers and listeners, they're staring at the screen.
This podcast is brought to you by viewers like you. To the listeners at home, I have never been a huge Doctor Strange fan, so I tried to do as much research as I can coming into this one. I was coming in very cold. I had seen Marvel had released an animated movie a few years ago, or not more than a few years ago, almost like 10, 15 years ago.
I don't remember.
Before the cinematic universe had started. And it's fine. It's good. It's his origin story.
Which this movie is.
Yeah, this one is too. So I don't know where some of this stuff came from. I just, some of it's fine. But let's talk about the VFX.
Okay.
Because, in the previous ones, it's mostly been suits and rockets. This one is heavier,
right,
on the VFX.
Well, especially the opening.
Yeah, the opening went to the Inception School of World Building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, two things. One, a lot of VFX, and two, you talked about the cinematographer had come from a previous movie. This one seems off, though. Like, it seems darker than the other. I know the Marvel Universe kind of has this standard color palette.
Yeah. And
it gets, slack for it, and people are like, well, it just looks like a TV series, but that's the point of this.
Right. Well, you have a director who's more of a horror guy, Derrickson.
Yep.
And he was able to get, I guess, quote unquote, permission to do the second Doctor Strange as an R, and it was supposed to be scary, right? Or it was going to be an R rating, scary.
I didn't know it was going to be R rated, but yeah, it was supposed to be scary.
I think it was supposed to push the boundary, but now he's out. Because now they're talking about Sam Raimi doing it.
Right.
So I'm going to speculate that he probably pushed for a lot of the differences you see in this movie compared to the other Marvel movies. So it probably wasn't like perfect symbiotic relationship between him and Feige.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume that's why you see him out for Doctor Strange 2, because he probably wanted more and they were like, no, and he just had to pull it back. Because this is the other thing, and we'll get to it later on with the MCU stuff, is that it's 2020 and there has been no talk of the Doctor Strange movie in terms of the next one starting production.
Right.
So you're assuming 2023, 2024.
Easily. With something this heavy on
right.
the visuals.
And now that's 8 years between these two movies, which is like, that's a long time. And I think, and we'll get to that, but that's, I mean, that's a byproduct of having so many characters, having so many movies, having so many, we need Avengers movies. And you're having individual storylines, individual story arcs, or for character arcs for movies, push down the road. Yeah. Where you're not going to have an Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3 in the span of what, 4 years, 5 years, right?
So it was 2008 to 2013?
Yeah.
So it was,
So
5 years.
Yeah, Captain America is probably the same span. Thor was the same. We're getting a fourth Thor, but Thor was the same span, those first three a little.
Yep.
You're starting to get these things that are spaced out now. I mean, where's this third Ant-Man?
Well, they just announced.
I know they're part of Phase 4, but it's like it's down the road.
Well, they just made a big announcement on the third Ant-Man. So we are we were sitting here in middle of September when we're recording this. They just announced that Kang, the Conqueror.
Right. Okay, that's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but again, we're still stuck in the can we film phase. So they're writing.
That's what makes me laugh. There's all these announcements about all these people signed up and all these movies that they're signed for. It's like, yeah, but you're not doing any of them. All right. It's great that you've got the next 40 years lined up for productions, but you're not doing any of them. So it's kind of just like, all right, great. They're doing that. Add it to the list. So, yeah. Well, back to this movie. So, go ahead.
No, what were you going to ask?
I was going to say like the Stan Lee cameo. I was going to the cameo.
Oh, the cameo was fine.
Now this is one of the cameos that they started shooting ahead of time,
right?
Because
he was getting sick.
He was a little older. Yeah. Obviously, he can't really do as much. But the Stanley cameo was shot by James Gunn. It wasn't shot by Derrickson.
Oh, okay.
And so I think he shot all four. I think they came in, did it one time. They must have just been on a soundstage, and just did it, and then they just placed it in.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was fine.
What were you gonna talk about?
Does the conclusion work for you? Does the battle with Dormammu work? Where he repeats time over and over again.
When his idea is just to annoy the hell out of him and be a jerk to him. It's okay. It's fine. Did you know that he voiced him?
I did know that.
And that it was his suggestion, which kind of bugs me. I like Cumberbatch. I do. It's a bit of a power play and an ego play
to be the villain and the hero.
To be like, hey man, I should do this and then like Derrickson's explaining it afterwards, and it's almost like a rationalization, like, oh, it's Strange's ego. He has to fight himself in this movie and just like get over. It's like 2020 hindsight rationalizing why you chose that.
Yeah, it almost seems like in Captain Marvel where the Annette Bening's character.
Yeah,
like, you visualize your biggest fear, essentially, and that's what he's doing with his ego. But he still has an ego afterwards. Like, he's like, oh, I just won.
I know.
I would have actually preferred if Tilda Swinton voiced Dormammu.
That's fine.
I maybe mix it up a little bit from her voice for the Ancient One. But...
And they talk about the Ancient One, and they talk about how she gets her power from the Dark Realm a little bit, and that's kind of what sends Mordo off into being the villain. I didn't realize he was the villain in the comics.
He's the main. He's the main villain.
I kind of want to know how she's getting her power from the Dark Realm. Like, I kind of wanted to know, like, in what way are you doing that? Why are you tethered to the Dark Realm? How are you tethered? Did you make a deal? Like, what's the deal? Like, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of left a little on this off there. I want to ask you this about, what is his name again? Dormammu? Okay. Yeah. I keep confusing him with the DC Galactus one, right? The World Eater.
Galactus is Marvel.
Okay.
Fantastic Four.
What's the DC one? What's the one that was in Green Lantern?
Oh, you had Sinesh, you had Parallax.
That the movie, the one that that Parallax? Okay.
Parallax. Hector. Oh God, I haven't seen that movie in forever. Hector Hammond was the guy with the big head.
No.
Parallax is the big creature. Yeah.
Yeah. is there a difference between these three things? Like they all eat worlds? Like what's the thing?
So
what's the deal with these things?
Galactus is the World Eater.
Okay.
He's the one from Fantastic Four. He's like their big villain. And the fact that they put him in the second Chris Evans Fantastic Four movie without any build up or anything just seemed a little like we're skipping right ahead to the big guy. But he is like the ultimate world devourer type guy. He's, multiple characters have faced him. Parallax, and I'm not going to go completely into Green Lantern mythology.
No, don't bother. Yeah,
but each there's not just the Green Lantern. There's lanterns with a ring for every color of the spectrum of the Roy G. Biv spectrum.
Okay.
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And each one of those has this like constructed creature that powers and feeds off the power from the lanterns, and so the yellow ring is based on fear.
Right.
The orange ring is based on greed or avarice. Red is on rage. Green is on willpower. Blue is hope, and Violet is love, I think, and I don't remember what indigo might be compassion.
Okay.
What happened in the Green Lantern mythology is the Parallax one got into the big giant Green Lantern on Oa and infected the Green Lanterns and instilled them with a little bit of fear, and so they couldn't use their rings against the color yellow.
Okay.
It gets crazy.
Okay.
But so that's what that one is. The Green Lantern movie is trash. Why they went with the Hal Jordan storyline instead of Jon Stewart, who we all knew from the Justice League cartoons, I don't know.
Okay.
Dormammu, I'm still trying to figure him out.
Okay.
But he's another he's this dark.
He's in a universe, part of the multiverse that's just all dark realm. Like keep calling it evil. There's nothing that good in the dark realm.
As far as I can tell, no.
But
not
he's
even
like
with Doctor Strange.
He's like a collection of planets, though. He's like a collection of like just space junk floating around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. Some of the visuals worked, like a lot of but the Inception stuff worked, but we had seen the Inception stuff.
Right.
When we get into the dark realm, it just seems like, I don't know if this came out in 3D. I don't know if you remember that.
I think it did. It did.
That was built for the 3D kind of trippiness of the colors and everything. And maybe this will lead us right into,
or maybe not. No.
The movie, into the comic comparisons. But the comics are very trippy. Like they were, when they were written in the 60s. We've talked about this with other series before, but height of counterculture. A lot of the readers who were college students at the time thought that Steve Ditko, who helped create and co-create the character and was really the driving force behind him, was a deadhead, so to speak. That he was in on it. He was, it'd be cooler if you did type of guy. And so the panels were super trippy. The way he worked with the color and the structure of the comic was different than a lot of people had seen before. So this seems like they just pulled pieces from other, they pull, like you said, they pull pieces maybe from Green Lantern. They pull pieces from Inception.
The movie itself.
They didn't do any visuals that stood out as something fresh, as something new. And it's hard to do that,
right.
But when you're coming off of a comic that did that, try a little harder.
So the scenes in the movie where the buildings are flipping up and they're kind of, the physics of the world, they're in the mirrorverse. Is that stuff from the comic?
I haven't seen a lot of, I haven't read much. I read a handful of the Ditko era stuff, and then I read one from the 2015 series as well as 2005, a short piece called The Oath. I didn't see anything about the Mirrorverse. There's a lot of
I didn't get any of that in my notes.
There's a lot of stuff in the astral plane that they go to.
So they just invented the Mirrorverse for this movie.
I think so.
Come on.
And listeners can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but so let us know where the Mirrorverse popped up from, but I couldn't find anything.
All right, so now we're gonna, I guess we're now into the comic verse movie. Caecilius is not a big villain in the comics. He's a minor villain.
He is almost like a sidekick of Baron Mordo.
Okay.
And Mordo is the real main villain. He's, they skew close to the comic origin in this one, where he was a disciple of the Ancient One. he was the one that was actually doing dark magic. So the Ancient One in the comics didn't really touch the dark magic, but Baron Mordo was dealing with it, and the Ancient One knew he was doing it the whole time.
So Mordo is more like Caecilius in the movie.
Yes.
But he's okay.
And I think in this, they're just making the differences between Mordo and Strange. They want to tie them together a little bit more before they turn them into this big, he's the first villain in a long time we've seen who survived.
Who's this, Mordo?
Mordo.
Well, he wasn't really technically a villain.
Right.
He becomes a villain.
He becomes a villain.
Right. So he's going to be the villain in the next movie, I would assume, or part of it.
Part of it. I don't know.
What I wanted to ask you was, is Strange's origin story in the movie similar? What are the similarities and differences?
Almost beat for beat.
With Mordo training him?
With Mordo working alongside him and the Ancient One. So to backtrack, yes, the whole thing, like whether it was in so Doctor Strange first appeared in Strange Tales number 110 by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, our regular cast of characters there. It was, I think, like an 8-page story.
Okay.
That told the origin. There was a later one down the line that retold the origin. That was 2 issues that they just extended it out and went into a little bit more of the training. And then in the 2015 series by Jason Aaron, they just retold the series, the origin story on page 1 in I think like 12 panels. So it's pompous doctor, pompous surgeon who driving very fast one night, crashes his car, destroys his hands, goes through experimental surgeries, can't fix them, can't hold the scalpel anymore, can't do what he wants to do. He eventually finds his way to Tibet.
Okay.
And where he learns to train with the Ancient One. The comics are, we talked a little bit about how they were trippy, but they were also they were dark. They were dour almost in terms of dialogue. It was more formalized dialogue. It wasn't like stuff you would normally hear on the streets.
Right.
And I credit to the writers of Marvel who are a little bit better at writing real dialogue than writing like dialogue for scripts. And what I mean by that is like what you and I would be saying versus how it may, versus what's written on the page.
Gotcha.
Is it necessarily how people talk? It's the same. It's dark, it's dour, but he's a lot more sarcastic. He's a jerk.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, and he is pompous, and he's one of the smartest people in the Marvel universe. And if anybody wants a good series on that, go check out the Illuminati. I know what I'm saying now with the Illuminati, but should have been a recommended reading last week with Civil War. There's the Illuminati Road to Civil War, where Strange, Tony Stark, Namor, Black Bolt from the Inhumans, Professor X, I believe, they're what they call the Marvel Illuminati. And Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four. They're the smartest people in the universe. They're the heads that kind of make the decisions. So,
okay.
He's on that group. Is
he on that group because he just knows time?
He's representative of the mystic side of the universe,
right?
But he's also, again, one of the smartest ones.
Does he have in this comics? Does he have the time stone like he does in this?
He has the soul stone for a while.
Okay.
So I think they gave him this one because there are items in the Doctor Strange canon that lets him play with time. So I think they gave him that. Plus, they wanted to, as Wong says at the end, that's an Infinity Stone.
Right.
They want to just tie this in together.
Well, which kills me in the movie because he's the only one that can use that. No one else can touch that. No one. He has it around his neck for most of the movie. Didn't ask. He just took it, and no one's like, oh, okay, no problem.
Okay, put it back.
It's the same way. Like, oh, you know what? You defended the New York Sanctum. You got it. He was just there.
Listen, Mike. Half of the battle is just showing up.
So, Christine Palmer.
Yes.
Now, we talked about the Night Nurse a little bit, I think, a couple episodes ago with Rosario Dawson, who plays the Night Nurse in the shows, Daredevil and Luke Cage. And she pops up, I think, in all of them, in all the Netflix shows, right?
I think she was like the Phil Coulson character for the Defenders series.
But I didn't realize that there was a 3 Night Nurses, or like, so explain the Night Nurse thing to me.
Simple answer. She's a
night nurse.
She's a night nurse. She's a nurse to the costume vigilantes of New York. So when they get injured, they show up to her kind of secret location and she patches them up.
Do you put an ad out to do that, or do you just kind of like?
You just kind of know you're part of the community. Like somebody just passes it along and says, "Hey, go check out Night Nurse." So yes, there's 3 of them. It dates back to the first one's name is Linda Carter.
Oh, not okay.
Not the Wonder Woman actress,
Oh.
but her name is Linda Carter. She was published in a book originally called Linda Carter Student Nurse, which I didn't know that, and it came out in the early 60s. And it was just more of a just like following her along in her life as a nurse and dealing with doctors and whatever.
Mhm.
And then she became one of 3 night nurses in the 1970s, which they were in the 70s in comics. They were trying to be, I think we talked about this in one of the bonus episodes. There's different phases, different ages of comic history. So in the 40s to the mid 50s, it was the golden age. After that to probably early 70s, it was the silver age. And then it gets grittier and they try to tell these more realistic stories. So like Batman moved into Gotham City outside of his mansion on the outskirts, and he was dealing with just more like street muggers and petty criminals and just serial killers and stuff. So comics were going in that like the world is a dark and dangerous place, don't go out at night type of situation. The 3 of them are Linda Carter is the first one, Georgia Jenkins is the second, and Christine Palmer is the third, all appearing as a night nurse in this series called Night Nurse.
Is Dawson's character Georgia Jenkins in them? Is she a total different name?
She
Can't
is
remember.
Claire Temple.
So then she's not. They just made her a night nurse.
They
She's
just
not
made her,
really.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So Linda Carter is more kind of like a plucky nurse detective. She didn't actually formally take on the title of Night Nurse until 2004 in a Daredevil comic.
Okay.
When she patched up Daredevil.
You're my night nurse.
Georgia Jenkins, she was an African-American woman. She provided free medical clinic and care to the people on her block. And then Christine Palmer was the third one, another one that was part of this night nurse team that was, helping people in distraught neighborhoods and just kind of dealing with the dangers of society.
Okay.
But the one that they use for the movie, sort of, for the most part, is the Linda Carter type character. And they just take Christine Palmer's name. Obviously, you're not going to use Linda Carter.
Right.
And I think the reason they do that is, so you asked about, I think you had emailed me, what's the Oath? Doctor Strange, the Oath.
Right, because I guess there's some reference in the movie to the comic.
Yeah. So first off, Christine Palmer, or Night Nurse, the Linda Carter version, is in The Oath. So The Oath is a story written by Brian K. Vaughan, writer behind Ex Machina, Why the Last Man, Saga, which is fantastic. It's a 5-issue miniseries. Doctor Strange. It opens with Doctor Strange getting shot, and he's shot by a silver bullet out of the gun of Adolf Hitler, which has dark magic in it, which is why I was able to break through his. Mike is just shaking his head right now. The dark magic broke through Strange's barriers, so that he went to the Night Nurse, and we learned the story from there.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
I want to backtrack. Where does he get shot? In Germany?
No, a thief that broke into the Sanctum Sanctorum had the gun.
In London?
No, in New York City.
So Hitler broke into the Sanctum and shot him?
No, it wasn't Hitler. It was another guy that had the gun.
All right. Carry on.
It was a character called Brigand. He had picked up the gun somehow and used the dark magic that was imbued in it to shoot Doctor Strange.
Gotcha.
Because comics.
All makes sense.
Hashtag because comics.
Goes to see the Night Nurse. Go on.
So we learned from there that Doctor Strange, in an attempt to cure Wong, who was suffering from a terminal cancer, had found a magical elixir that could essentially cure not only all cancer, but all diseases. And so it gets stolen by this character that
undoubtedly,
that shoots Strange, and eventually finds its way to a pharmaceutical company that wants to destroy it.
What?
Just read it. It's gonna be one of our recommended readings.
So I have a picture. I just have a picture of this evil dude wearing evil robe stuff, right? Coming in, shoots Strange, grabs him, yes, and the next thing he's like in a business suit in a waiting room, waiting to take a meeting with the head of the pharmaceutical. Yes, I'm ready for my meeting. Like is that what happens in the comic? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I'm not gonna spoil the whole thing, but
you've just spoiled it.
I mean, there's a lot of people in suits in it in a superhero book.
Okay.
But in it, so Night Nurse, follows them around. Wong is sick. Strange has been shot, so she comes along. At the end, without any real, unless I completely missed it, there is some chemistry, but minimal sexual tension between the characters and minimal hinting at they make out and they kiss at the very
You're
last
talking about
panel.
Night Nurse and Strange.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even want Christine Palmer to be with him in
Right,
this movie.
and
she deserved better.
It didn't make any sense in the book. It doesn't make any sense in this movie. Like, it sounded like in this movie they had like an affair, like a little fling together.
In this movie?
In the movie, yeah.
Well, in the movie, they went out once. I think they
Yeah.
were together once, and then because she says it's the strange rule, she doesn't date people she works with. They're
Yeah.
definitely flirting, but she knows he's a jerk off,
Yeah.
so she doesn't want anything to do with him. And then even when she's rehabbing, she clearly cares about him. But I mean, let's just assume nothing happens. So she deserves better than him. You wanted to talk about Nicodemus
Yes.
West? Is that it? What
So
is
Nicodemus
that?
West,
Yeah.
he's the doctor that fixes Strange's hands. In the comic, in Doctor Strange the Oath, he does the same. He fixes Doctor Strange's hands, but he's like, Strange absolutely rips into him again and says, how dare you,
in the comic.
in the comic, you ruined my life, you destroyed my career, yada yada yada.
Michael Stuhlbarg, who plays Nicodemus West, is actually an awesome actor. He plays Al Rothstein in the Boardwalk Empire series. He's not in this movie for no reason. Like, he's got to be in this movie for a better reason than just to get crapped on by Cumberbatch. But you're saying no. That's all.
I'm saying no. I mean, in the Oath, he eventually learns. So in the Oath, we see that Strange turns down various patients because they can't pay, and it's just not a challenge to him. And one of them comes up to Nicodemus West and says, "Thank you so much. I'm gonna die, but you ruined his career. From all of us that he didn't save or he refused to save, thank you." And so that throws West off. He's like, "Well, no, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to help him." And eventually, he found his way to the Ancient One too, and the Ancient One trained West almost as an insurance policy.
Oh, really?
That Strange wouldn't work, and that was unbeknownst to Strange. And West had accidentally murdered somebody, and in order to give up, in order to kind of like cover that up, he joined what they call Timely Pharmaceuticals. And those that listen to our history of Marvel Comics knows that Timely was the first name of Marvel Comics,
Nice.
original name.
I like how you're tying it into another episode.
Yeah. Always. Yeah, so he hires this hitman to go get the elixir from Strange, and then he brings it back to his bosses at the pharmaceutical company who had, made these drugs that were so expensive and so out of, they were not covered by insurance, which, by the way, insurance, pharmaceutical companies want their drug to be covered by insurance.
Yes. That makes sense.
Because it's going to sell more. More people will go get it. Doctors will recommend it. You don't want it to not be covered. So I don't understand. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but it's just stupid when that happens in movies that like, oh, we have this drug that's not covered.
Right.
Come get it. Okay, well, you screwed up then.
Put it through trials.
Yeah, you screwed up. You like, why are insurance companies not reimbursing you? But I digress. So that is Nick West. I don't think. I mean, unless they try to tell that story where they have too many like floating ideas out there. So Nick West could obviously follow the character, the character from the Oath comic, and go and train with the Ancient One. We don't know what's going to happen with Benjamin Bratt.
Yeah.
Is Baron Mordo going to become the full villain, or are they going to really just embrace this? The movie is going to be called Madness of the Multiverse or something.
Right. A lot of the notes that I have in terms of comic verse movie, not a lot is like, there's like in the other movies that we do, it's always like, oh, they pulled from this, they pulled from that, pulled from that. There's nothing in this that they pulled from. Like, I don't know, like, aside from the accident, aside from his origin story of becoming who he becomes, and the fact that they do use Caecilius, because even Caecilius is supposed to be an amalgamation of Mordo, this guy Kalu, who's a rival of the Ancient One and master of black magic, and then the Mindless Ones, which are minions, which is of Dormammu,
right?
Which is what Caecilius and his two people become as they're going up to they start turning into the Mindless Ones, I guess. So that's the only kind of thing that's pulled from a comic. Everything else just kind of seems like,
we made it up as we went.
Yeah.
You had sent me a note. He's like, tell me about some of his stuff. And one is the Crimson Bands of Sidorak, which you'll notice anybody who goes and reads the Doctor Strange comics after this, there's a lot of alliteration. There's the hoary hosts of Hogarth.
Yeah.
And the
Wand of Watum.
The Wand of Watum and all this stuff. The Cauldron of...
the Daggers of Davaroth.
Yes. A lot of alliteration.
I got another one. Hang on. Where is it? No, that's not one. Never mind.
Love the alliteration.
Yeah.
But the Crimson Bands, I don't know what that thing was. Like, that thing was this like kind of cage, almost Hannibal Lecter type thing.
I liked it though.
The bands they're actual red, almost like electrified silk bands.
Oh,
is how
in
they're
the comic?
Yeah, and you'll see in Endgame when they go and fight Thanos, he uses what actually look like the Crimson Bands from the comics. Yeah, so I don't know what this like weird cage thing is.
Who knows? Well, let's be honest. The cape is the one that used it, not him.
Right, and the cape,
the robe. Excuse me. Right,
the cloak,
the
cloak of levitation.
That's not alliteration.
No.
The cloak of levitation chose you. Interesting.
But the cloak of levitation looks like it almost acts like it's the magic carpet from Aladdin.
Oh yeah.
And it's,
absolutely.
It's got a little bit of like
I
its
can
own
show you the world.
shining.
There you go.
Glitter.
There you go.
The cloak it's definitely a thing from the comic. He wears it all the time.
Mm-hmm. If I'm Mordo and they're like the cloak chose you, I'd be a little ticked off that I only got boots. I got the boots. You got a wicked cloak.
You got a cloak and I got the boots.
I got dumb boots that make me walk on the side of the walls, which you can do anyways.
And he gets the Eye Agamotto.
Yes.
I don't know. Some of this stuff seemed really forced. Oh, here's another one. The Axe of Angarumas, which
he uses right in the comic because he loses power or something like that.
Yeah, so he uses that in the. Again, this is another one on the recommended reading. I'm only going to recommend the ones that I read, but they were really good, and I found.
I'm only going to recommend the ones that I read. That's dynamite research there, Pat.
I looked them up. They're highly regarded by other fans, but
I made sure they were legit. Field
did my research. Yeah, so in the 2015 Jason Aaron, Chris Bacallo series, which is fantastic. That's where he's a little bit more sarcastic. He's still a pompous jerk, but he's in a nicer way about it.
Right. Dr. Dirk.
One of the cool things they do when he's in the astral plane and they see him looking at all the different monsters and everything, the monsters are in color and the rest of Earth is in black and white.
Right.
So it's a nice visual. I think I sent you some shots from it. It's a nice visual representation of it, and it was a cool way to play with the comic medium. But part of the first 2 volumes of the series, and even the third one afterwards, is there's a price to pay with magic. And I think there's even a line in the book that says the bill comes due.
Oh, Mordo says that too in the movie.
And it's
bill always comes due.
It's a huge theme of the movie where, every time you use some magic, you get sick, or there's something, ruins your body, or somebody, there's something to pay for tapping into this mystical side of the world.
What's Benjamin Bratt paying for? What's Pangborn paying for? Nothing. He's constantly got magic in his spine.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The other part of it is there's a group that is almost treats science as a religion, comes and attacks all of the different multiverses, all of the different sanctums, kills most of the Sorcerer Supreme from the different universes, and then finally make their way to Earth. And of course, Doctor Strange and a bunch of the other mystics on Earth have to fight it. And that's when he picks up the Axe of Angarumas, which is imbued with magical power, so he's still able to use a little bit of it.
Everything imbued with magical powers in this world.
Yeah. So that's one. Definitely check it out. But it's like I said, it's very sarcastic. It's almost this kind of like, it's that moment you get from Endgame when him and Wong are going to go out for ice cream.
Totally forgot that moment.
When Banner crashes into the Sanctum. So Heimdall sends him off of the ship, crashes him in, where they're a little bit more personable. And they're like, that's what their day is. They just kind of wander around Greenwich Village. People come to them with some problems, and they're usually of the mystic sort, and they solve them, and that's their adventures. Yeah, so that's what you get on this one.
So before we dive into the MCU stuff, I want to ask one more thing about this. In the comic, is he always is the running gag always that he has to tell people that he's not he's a doctor, not a mister?
No.
Because I did that like 5 times in this movie.
I think that came from what I found on that was when he was created, somebody was going to call him Mr. Strange.
Right.
And it was already close to Mr. Fantastic. I think there was a couple other Mr. characters that were out there. So they made him a doctor.
Okay.
And so I think that was more
I mean, it comes off pompous in the movie, but
It comes off pompous, yeah. But I think it was just, I don't know. Maybe it's also how, the science and the magic make it a good foil. I don't know.
It's fine. No, it's fine. Let's talk about this movie within the MCU, and I'm going to start off with the tag, with the Thor tag.
Yes.
Okay. That's actually from the Thor movie, right? That's not even like shot for this.
I don't believe so. No,
Okay,
I think there's similar scenes in
Because I gotta
beginning of Ragnarok.
I totally forgot Ragnarok. Like I forgot that he even sees Strange in Ragnarok. I just always assume he's on the planet.
Yeah, I forget in the opening, but Hela comes and they find Odin in
Right.
one of the countries that worships the Norse mythology.
Yeah, whatever. So Strange is only in that one scene.
Yes.
Okay, that's the only time he's in that movie. And then you don't ever see him again until Infinity War.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Oh, did I say Endgame before? I meant Infinity War when they're going out
For ice cream?
For ice
Well,
cream,
that's
yeah.
fine, that's fine. Whatever, they're all together. Yeah. They were going to be one big movie anyways. All right, so the next time he shows up is in Thor Ragnarok, and then Infinity War and Endgame, and then that's it.
Yes.
That's the only times.
Yeah.
Never in anything else. Okay. Because in Endgame, they're a big part of how everybody gets to the fight at the end.
Yes.
With all those big giant sling rings, they're a huge part of how everybody gets to go. First of all, they got to get to all the places to let everyone come in. You think they would get a little more time in terms of screen time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which he does get a lot of time in Infinity War, where he gets partnered up with Peter and Tony.
He's in space with them,
He's
right?
in space with them.
Right.
I think that helps a lot because from a personality perspective, he's a better character. He's a more enjoyable character. Obviously, has the foil of the other two. Tony's a little pompous, and then Peter is Peter. I think they needed to give him a little bit more in that, but they needed to make him nicer, which they did, and they made him more friendlier. He's still a jerk. He's still, when he says, I'm Doctor Strange, and Peter says, oh, we're using our made-up names now. So he works well against the foils, but yeah, I think, when he shows up, I guess, in Black Panther, in Wakanda, and
he's in Black Panther?
No, he's not,
Okay.
but like in Endgame, when they do the
right,
circles,
right.
he must show up in Wakanda to say, follow me through these circles.
Well, he disappears with the snap.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which makes me laugh because he finds all these. Most of the movie most of the end of the movie of Infinity War is spent with him contemplating the what needs to happen for them to win. And he says there's only one thing that can happen, and it's obviously that they have to sacrifice themselves, or they have to allow themselves to die, or whatever. So he's gonna remember when he comes back 5 years later that as soon as he comes back,
I don't think to them it was 5 years later. I think to them it was just like
but how do they know that everybody is fighting at the other side of the world, and they need to go get everyone to go there? How do they know that?
I think it was him. I think he maybe did some magic and looked into it.
Do you think he popped a hole in it, like when he was getting the books out? He's just like, "Whoa, okay, we're fighting. Let's go."
Oh, okay, we're in upstate New York
Whoa,
now, guys.
I'm sorry, but like I could just imagine. I'd like to see him like be sling ringing everywhere. Nope, not here. Nope, not here.
That would be funny.
How does he get all of his disciples? Like they make it seem like he becomes the Sorcerer Supreme.
He does become the Sorcerer
But
Supreme.
they never say that. He's just part of the Sanctum in New York. They never say that he's Sorcerer. If he was Sorcerer Supreme, he should be in the temple where he met the Ancient One. Not in New York.
They never say that?
I don't remember it, but I have shoddy memory, but
you could be right. Well, I assumed he took over because the other Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One, died.
Why does he get to take over? He just became Sorcerer. Why does he get to take over? Well, shouldn't it be Wong?
Because the cloak picked him.
Oh, okay.
No, Wong's a butler. Wong is training as like a butler to the mystic arts.
Oh my God, he's a butler?
Yeah.
But he can use the sling ring. He knows all those powers, but he can only
He doesn't get the cloak.
He can only buttle? That's terrible. All right. So I guess we talked about it a little bit. The intention of this movie was always to introduce the idea of the multiverse.
Yeah,
because I guess that was what they were going to do moving forward. Which I'm going to tell you right now, if sales ever slack, they're going to go to another dimension and bring back Iron Man. I mean, it's just, like that's what's going to happen. If they're like, oh, we didn't do that good with that movie, just go Iron Man. Let's go Iron Man 5.
Another dimension.
But yeah, so they were intending to introduce the idea of the multiverse.
And I
this
forgot how
movie.
heavily they hit on the multiverse, because like when Spider-Man Far From Home came out and the trailer's like, oh, Mysterio's from a multiverse, I knew it was BS.
Right.
But looking back on this, I was like, oh man, they really hit on this multiverse concept.
Right.
And it's like, oh, maybe had they, I don't know, maybe like this could be possible. And I think that is what we're going to get an exploration of in the second movie and also the WandaVision Disney Plus show.
Do you think there's gonna be a lot of Easter eggs in that one?
Yeah, I think the end of WandaVision or end of the first season, however that makes it work, I think it's gonna lead right into Doctor Strange 2.
Okay. All right.
But I will, speaking of TV shows, we talked about this on another one of the bonus episodes, is the Runaways.
Okay.
And in the Runaways, it doesn't have very many connections through the rest of the MCU. The one thing that it does have a connection to is this movie.
Okay, go ahead.
And so there's the character of Nico and her mother, Tina. They wield the...
I want you to know that I have no idea who you're talking about, but go ahead. Just fine, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it. That's the thing. But they wield this item called the Staff of One. And it's this magical item. And then when they tap into the dark magic through this, it's a dark magic conduit, essentially. Their eyes get the same glowy look that Mads Mikkelsen's does.
They get the purple around
They
them?
get the purple and the
black?
cracking. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they've tapped into the dark realm.
They've tapped into the dark realm and they've gone into the dark dimension. And they bring back villains from the dark dimension, one being Morgan Le Fay, who's a mystic witch character. But this is, like, of all the movies to tie into it,
Doctor Strange.
all the things to tie into it, that was one of it. But it was a small reference, and you'd only really get it if you had seen both.
Is the dark dimension a bigger deal in the comic than it is that we've known in the movies?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we only get 2 hours with it.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they use the dark dimension a lot in the comic in terms to explain a lot of some of the villains.
A lot of the mystic villains.
Mystic, okay.
Yeah.
Did you get the whole motif that the color green means you're a villain in the MCU? Because that's part of this. Like, so Mordo wears green. Hela is green in Thor.
Well, that's a
Loki.
thing. That's a thing in most comics too.
Okay.
So Lex Luthor wore green and purple in his suits.
Is that like an unwritten thing, or is that just kind of like how it worked out?
I think it was just kind of how it worked out.
'Cause
Like the Joker has a lot of green in his hair,
Obviously, in contrast to the blue. Well,
in contrast to like the
blue,
blues and
yeah.
the reds from the heroes,
but then the Green Lantern's green.
and the villain is yellow.
Yeah.
So
I got
and Green Arrow is green.
You mean Batman too?
Yeah. I mean, he had an arrow.
Yeah, that's right.
He had an arrow cave, an aeromobile, an aeroplane.
A lot of DC talk in this episode, Pat.
It is.
That's how great we love Doctor Strange. No, I shouldn't say that. So let's wrap it up. Because honestly, there really isn't a lot of MCU stuff in this movie, but this character pops into other MCU movies later on.
Right.
I think we talked about how the space of time between movies, that it's just really difficult. Like, we're not going to see another Doctor Strange for a while.
Right. And
And
I'm wondering if he might show up in like Shang-Chi, or because that's more based on the mystic. He has 10
Maybe.
rings and dealing with the 10 Rings organization, and that had come from the Mandarin side of things. So there's a lot of Eastern mysticism to it too. So he might show up as like, he's one of the few known characters and like known commodities, and that's what we could call them, known commodities going forward.
The problem with Phase 4 is that you are leaving a lot of your core members of the MCU that we've known it. Captain America,
Mhm.
Iron Man. I mean, I know Thor's coming back, but I mean, it's not that big. So you are hoping that these new people, these new heroes will catch on. And let's be honest, they're not going to. Not as hot as the other ones got, because there was never these new movies never existed before Iron Man came out. So
Right.
everyone's just like, oh my God, Captain, oh my God. Now it's just like, now we're doing this. Oh, now we're doing that.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
I'm looking at the Phase 4 list right now. The first one, Black Widow, Eternals, Shang-Chi, and then we had the Spider-Man sequel, Thor, and Doctor Strange. So, Black Widow is going to do well. People are going to...
They'll all do well.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
saying they're not going to
Eternals is a
financially
tough
do well.
concept to understand. Like, I've read a couple of the comics on that.
Yeah, I have no idea what to expect
It's a
out
tough,
of that.
it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
And then Shang-Chi, that's another one that, you're going 2 back-to-back movies with not a lot of known entities in them.
They'll do well.
Right.
Will they do as well as the other ones have done. Maybe not.
No, they'll probably do this level.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange.
But I
one
think
level.
I'm wondering if that should be the expectation for a lot of these movies. Like they shouldn't expect to do like, Iron Man money or Captain America money. They should expect to do like, Doctor Strange money, stuff like that. And maybe you'll be lucky and you'll hit one of them will hit and you'll get your new kind of like slate of stars. It's almost like when Saturday Night Live will have like for like 4 or 5 years they'll have a core group of people that are just funny.
Yep.
Then they all leave, and then you kind of are mired through a couple of years of they're okay, they're not as good, not as good, not as good, not as good. Then all of a sudden you'll have another. So it's cyclical. Yeah. I'm wondering if that's what we're gonna have here, but that's a question for another episode. I was just took the words right out of my mouth. So all right, so I'm done talking about Doctor Strange.
Not that we talked about Doctor Strange.
No, well, because there's really not much to talk about. He's a jerk, Dr. Jerk.
Mr.
Dr. Jerk. What are we doing next week?
We are doing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Cue up that yacht rock radio. And
there you go. We're gonna go back to the 70s and 80s and listen to some more music and the adventures of the GOTG gang. I like that.
Wow, that was good. That was good.
All right, I'm out. See you next week. Pat's gonna give you his recommended reading, although he already gave you 2 of them in the episode. Shame on you, Pat. Go.
As always, at the end of each episode, we like to send you home with some recommended reading that follows up on some of the characters and plots presented in this week's film. Our recommended reading section is sponsored by Infinite Heroes, comics, cards, and collectibles in Watertown, Connecticut. If you're in the Connecticut or New England area, it's a great location to pick up comics from Marvel, as well as DC, Image, and more. They also have a large collection of trading cards, toys, and collectibles. Owner Paul Santos has worked in comics for years, most recently as an editor at DC Comics. Ask him for a recommendation and tell him we sent you.
This week in the Doctor Strange recommended reading, first up we have Essential Doctor Strange Volume 1 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. This hefty collection covers Strange Tales number 110, Doctor Strange's Origin, number 111, and numbers 114 through 168. Yeah, this is 50 plus issues in this book, including the 17-part epic, The Eternity Saga. Strange is stripped of his power by Dormammu and Baron Mordo, must travel to find the interdimensional being Eternity. This is quintessential Doctor Strange reading for anybody that wants to like the character but couldn't from this movie. Next up, we had Doctor Strange The Oath. We talked about this one in today's episode. Written by Brian K. Vaughan, renowned writer of Saga, Paper Girls, and The Runaways. And art by Marcos Martin. This follows Doctor Strange, Wong, and the Night Nurse as they get to the bottom of who shot Doctor Strange and who stole a magical elixir that could be the cure to all cancer. This is a fun 5-parter that reminds us that Strange isn't just a mister or a master, but a true doctor, sworn to uphold his Hippocratic oath. And finally, this is one I'm a big fan of. It's Doctor Strange Volume 1, The Way of the Weird. The 2015 series by Jason Aaron and Chris Bacallo introduces us to a bohemian Doc Strange that battles the weirdest things that find their way to our plane of existence. Its visuals rival the early Ditko-era run, and while still a jerk, this Strange is more personal and sarcastic than his movie counterpart. This series is fantastic. Thanks for listening. Happy reading. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll see you next week.